Started. So call the meeting to order. First order of business is approval of the May 29th, 2024 minutes. Can I get a motion? Linda, second Betty. Are there any changes or corrections? I see no's around. So all those in favor? Aye. Are there any nays? Okay, thank you. We are now at informational items. Monthly financial report. Heather?
Good afternoon, everyone. In your packet, you have the monthly financials through May 31st of 2024. I just want to remind you that revenue will still show us slightly below budget to date because of property taxes being recognized in June when the first installment is due. So June's financials next month will be a little more telling as to where we're at for the year, and expenditures are also below budget to date at 28.7% of budget, whereas we're about 42% through the fiscal year. Last month, you had asked a little bit about if we could provide a little more information on PPRT. We did a little more digging over the past couple of weeks. You'll see in the report that it is trending below budget by 11.6%, or about $780,000 to date. We've had the first 5 of the 8 distributions received. At this point last year, we'd received about $10 million, and this year to date we have about $6 million. That doesn't mean that we won't, get closer to our budget of 9.1 for the year, but we probably will see a lesser amount than we had anticipated. Not anything that we can't cover by, like, for example, interest income is already over budget to date. So we shouldn't be worried about that point or from that perspective. As you'll recall, our lobbyist last month also indicated we should look at fiscal 19's distribution for fiscal 25. And for fiscal 19 year to date, we had received about $3.5 million. So that's below where we are right now. So just to have that data point. The Illinois Department of Revenue has indicated in a recent notice that for fiscal 25, the distributions will be about 25% less than what they are for fiscal 24. So we're going to take all of these into consideration as we budget for fiscal 25. And for those of you that attend the budget hearings that are coming up very soon in the next couple of weeks, and throughout the whole budget process, we'll keep you apprised as to what we're going to land on for budget purposes. So do you have any questions on that at all?
Any questions for Heather? No, thank you. Okay. Long-term care services fund report.
Yes. So we are inching closer to being in the black in the long-term care services fund, and anticipate that happening in the next couple of months, again with the distribution from the property taxes and transfers once those are reflected. Additionally, we received the final payout from Molina. We had been negotiating with them on an outstanding balance that they had, and we did wrap that up. It was about $300,000 we received, so we were pleased with that. The finance department will run some scenarios per Chairman Williams' request on long-term strategy for the fund to ensure that we can cover long-term care services in perpetuity, such as the Center for Prevention of Abuse Ombudsman program that we just heard about last committee.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. June 2024 accounts payable review.
That is before you in your packet. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. I do want to note we are going to begin pulling in expenses related to employee reimbursements on this as well. Those are run through our payroll system, and so it's different. It's tracked differently than these are. So it's just going to be a matter of pulling that report, getting it into a usable format, and combining it with this one. So, but we thought, we have our staff does training and conferences, and we want that reflected in the true expenses as well. So that should be coming in the near future.
Any questions? Okay, moving on. Peoria County capital projects, funding sources, and progress.
So this has been updated through July 10th, expenditures. I just wanted to note one, the Health and Human Services building didn't change from last month's report to this month's report because of timing and the payment of the pay application. But we have another one that I believe was issued last week that will be on the next report to give you a better view of where we're at with that one.
Any questions on that report? Okay. Scott, quarterly strategic plan update.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is an update for second quarter. There are multiple strategic plan action items that come through this committee. They start on page 81 of the packet. The first one is the capital improvement funding strategy. In terms of work that to highlight during second quarter, the team on this project got together to figure out what some goals needed to be for the project, identified some next steps, and then they'll be incorporating some of those things into this year's budget process, along with now that you've awarded a contract for the facilities master plan. Once we get the results of that later this year, we'll incorporate that as well. Next is goal number 15, which is the performance measurement strategy. Here, the team met with IT staff to discuss goals and identify any potential web-based reporting tool options that could not only make departments' jobs easier in submitting key performance indicators or KPIs into and then tracking what those are, but then also reporting out. So I think in the coming quarters, we'll see some of that start to come to fruition. And then the third and final action plan item is goal number 18, which is long-term care debt monitoring. We're largely in just report mode to the committee here, but obviously we do have a resolution later on the agenda. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. We have two resolutions. The first one, Axon Digital Evidence Software for Public Defender, and this is a joint resolution with County Operations. Can I get a motion, please? Danny Phelan, second, Jennifer. Okay.
Thank you. This is a resolution recommending the approval of $44,700 in surplus reserves from the IT Services Fund to fund the Axon Digital Evidence Software for the Peoria County Public Defender's Office. We presented this earlier to the Operations Committee. For those of you that weren't there, Axon is a product that the cameras are used within our county squad cars and our city of Peoria cars. To capture digital evidence from that point, and then also our state's attorney's office has been using the Axon software to manage their cases since fall of 2022. In having discussions with the public defender's office earlier this year and Kevin, we started talking about how they manage digital evidence, and that's where this project started from. So I'm going to turn this over to Kevin and let him tell you a little bit about it.
Yes, thank you, Mark. I'm Kevin Lowe, the Peoria County Public Defender. And early on, as I started analyzing our workflow with our digital evidence, it became apparent that it would be necessary to do something about it, how to manage it, to make it more efficient, more effective. The state's attorney, Jody Hoos, at some point had reached out to me and urged me to contact Mark Little to look into a license for the Public Defender's Office for the Axon Justice System. Now, the Axon Justice System is a digital evidence management system. So in essence, it helps us manage the discovery flow in criminal cases. For those of you unfamiliar with discovery, that the basic idea is that when you have a court case pending, each side has to provide the other with the evidence that they intend to use in a case. Anything they have, we got to send it to the other person or the other side. From the state's attorney's perspective, and in talking to Jody Hoos, this is a massive amount of digital discovery that has to be given to the public defender's office. As I discussed earlier at 1 o'clock to the committee, we have body-worn cameras that are becoming more and more prevalent these days. Your average run-of-the-mill retail theft case could have 2 officers show up, both have a body-worn camera, in 2 separate squad cars. Each has a dash cam. The store itself will have a surveillance system. Then the officers who respond are going to write a report, which becomes a PDF digital report. So you have all this digital evidence in your simple run-of-the-mill retail theft type of case. Now you can amplify that by about 20 if you talk about a murder case. Your typical murder case will see 20 to 30 police officers show up, each with a body-worn camera. Everybody's got squad cars with dash cams in them. They have a lot of police reports that are written. You could have cell phones that are going to be analyzed, are going to be downloaded, which is becomes this massive amount of material that has to be transferred from one office to the other, and it's become a logistics nightmare. The way we've been doing it so far is that Jody Hoos, her office, has access to the Axon system, so they're coordinated with Peoria Police Department, Peoria Sheriff Department. Those agencies upload all that evidence into the Axon system. The state's attorney's office has access to it, but then to share it with us, they have to decide which elements are going out. If there's anything confidential, they don't have to share that with us, but all the actual discovery materials, they check the boxes, they create a downloadable link, which they then send to us via email. And then we have to take that information, download it onto DVDs, external hard drives, thumb drives, whatever it is we can find, and then make sure it gets to the correct attorney. As you can imagine, as you amplify this over hundreds, in fact, well, actually per year, we're talking thousands of cases. This becomes, you can see the nightmare we're facing, and the system like this will really help us to manage that and become more efficient and effective in our workflow. Then beyond the actual sharing of the discovery materials, as I mentioned earlier at 1 o'clock, this has a lot of very powerful built-in processing capabilities. One of the things you can do is edit video clips, which oftentimes we have to do on a regular basis to prepare for trial. You can't just take a full video of something that happened or an interview and just expect you can enter that into evidence at a trial. You have to have specific little clips of evidence that you can present pursuant to the rules of evidence. So having the built-in coordinated video editing capability is very good. Redaction capability as well. Oftentimes you need to redact things that are in those videos that would be inappropriate to share with the jury perhaps. And then finally, one of the most exciting aspects of it is an artificial intelligence-based automatic transcription capability of this software. This is particularly relevant when it comes to analyzing digital media, digital videos. The bulk of what we deal with is going to be body-worn cameras and interviews at a police station or in a squad car. As I mentioned, you have just a massive amount of these videos. And if you're working on a case that has 20, 30, 40 videos, that's going to take a lot of time to sit there and just go through it hour upon hour and try to manually transcribe. Well, they have a system here where their AI capability will analyze it for you and will give you a pretty accurate, a very, very accurate, actually, transcription. It's automatically done. And on top of that, it will create a summary of the entire video file. So it becomes a real time saver. Mark had participated in an online demo we did with Axon, and I quite frankly, I was blown away by the capability of this software. And the state's attorney's office has had it for quite some time. Jody Hoos and Deb Shelby, the chief of their felony division, and both urged me to contact Mark to get this software if we can. So I'm hoping we can get this passed. So thank you.
Are there any questions for Mark or Kevin? Aiden, going to ask your same question, which was a good one.
I'm going to reiterate the same question I asked at the Operations Committee. Tell me about any security concerns about this, and does either side get to see inappropriate information from the other?
No, they don't. They're both separate entities. They're both completely separate. Users are managed completely separate. So the only thing they get to do is pass information back and forth. That's all they get to see. So.
And are there any other cybersecurity issues with this?
No, it's a hosted solution, so it'll be a cloud-based. One thing we like about it is the fact that it has unlimited storage in that. So that's written into the contract, which means today, as we store digital data on site here, we're continuing in that growth and have to back that up. This is on them to do that. So.
Rob?
Thank you. I noticed on our financial report this month there were some transcripts that we paid out. With this new software, could you upload like a deposition, videotape it, upload it, and then rely on that to do your transcripts rather than hiring a stenographer to do those?
I don't think this would be a substitute because the types of transcripts that we order in your typical court case have to be prepared by a certified court reporter. I think those are the types of transcripts you're probably referring to.
Depositions even, rather than actual court transcripts, more depositions.
Yeah, we don't, in criminal court, we rarely do depositions. We're not authorized to do them outside of very specific limited instances. You would see that more often in a civil cases where most every witness is going to be deposed prior to any significant proceeding in the case. But it's very much limited in a criminal context to situations where you have a material witness that either side can convince a judge will likely be unavailable at the time of trial. Then under that limited circumstance, we could ask for permission to conduct a deposition. But in my 29 years now as a criminal defense attorney in all the cases I've handled in Peoria County, my cases, that's happened one time in 29 years. So that shows you how infrequent that is.
Additional questions? Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You were saying that AI will be doing some of the transcript, or is there any chance that it will get it wrong and they will come back, either side suing us for, either on the defense or the prosecution, that it, does somebody check out the transcript to make sure it did it right? I don't know anything about it. That just kind of popped in my head when you were talking about it.
Yeah, it's a great question. In my opinion, there's really no chance of that. AI in the transcription process is really a tool for either side to use to help process this massive amount of information and help direct us to the relevant portions of it. And that's the way I see it being used. And you'd have to ask the state's attorney's office how they've been using it for the last couple of years, but I imagine they do something similar. It directs them to the location they need to be, and then we can really use a magnifying glass, look at the actual details of that clip, and sometimes maybe the transcription's wrong. You have to listen to it and decide what's actually being said, and then if there is an error in it, it provides for a way to correct it and update the transcript before you might print it out and then use it during a trial. So absolutely a very good question, but as I say, it's more of a tool directing us where to go and then helping us just really synthesize and break down all this massive amount of information. Right, yeah. There you go. I'm glad you looked.
Any other questions? Okay, good questions. So we'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Are there any nays? Okay, thank you. Moving on, the second resolution is Headington Oaks write-off. Can I get a motion to get this on the floor, please? Phil, second. Steve?
Thank you. As you are all very well aware, we closed the nursing home about 4 years ago, next month actually. And over that time, we have been continuing collection efforts on the outstanding receivables. We have worked with, now very minimal county staff, consultants, board members, the state's attorney's office. We've had a lot of different approaches we have taken, and after these 4 years of collection efforts, we feel we are at a point where the remaining debt is uncollectible. Per the Headington Oaks bad debt policy, the board needs to approve writing off the remaining accounts. The total amount is about 1.4 million, and it consists of two different batches, if you will, of accounts. In Matrix Care, which is the report that you receive monthly on the receivables, those are patient accounts. And so if a resident was a patient at Headington Oaks and they had either they paid out of their own pocket, private pay, or patient liability is how that's listed on the report. Humana managed care, Medicaid, Molina, health insurance, all those different avenues. That's what composes that one, the major piece of it. The second piece are not shown on that monthly receivable report, but they're on our balance sheet as state amounts owed to us from the state of Illinois, and those are not resident specific. Those were for an agreement that was made many years ago that we received payment. We were supposed to receive payment on for specific things, but not specifically tied to a resident. So that's why it didn't go on the resident account. So this total would include all of that. We have worked. I mentioned most recently we worked with our Medicaid consultant with Molina, and we got that final payout. We don't anticipate any others coming from that. And we had been working with HFS. They issued one payment. I believe it was late in December of last year, and we believe that is the only payment that we'll receive from them. So I've been here in this role for 2.5 years, and I will admit I was very optimistic when I started, and I thought, oh, the people owe money, they're going to pay us. Scott's smiling because he was kind of like, well, be cautiously optimistic. So, but we were able to collect about $600,000 over that time frame. It's not as much as I had hoped, or any of us, I'm sure, had hoped, but I think it's better than what we would have had we not done any of these efforts over the past few years. So I come to you today to ask you to approve the resolution to write off the remaining balances. That will allow us to continue moving on in a positive direction, reallocate staff time that had been directed to this, and have true and accurate reporting on our financial statements. Because if you don't believe something is collectible, it should be written off. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can try to answer for you.
Are there any questions? Steve?
I'll start first with a comment. I'd like to thank CFO McCord for all the work and effort that she has done. I would say her team, but I think it's a team of one, along with some other board members that have helped, other folks. This has been a due diligence. I'd like to also, as a board, reflect back. I think this was about a 12-year period of time that we had an accounts receivable balance that I think maxed out around $9.2 million receivable, which means money that was owed to us, to Headington Oaks at the time, that we weren't getting. The majority of it was because we as a county were not following through with our role to make sure we were filing the right paperwork, doing the right procedures. And again, I'm not here to blame. What I'm here to do is to make sure we remember this as a board, because previous boards, and I sat on previous boards, we're as responsible as anyone for the taxpayers' money to recover the money, to do right accounting. This was a gap that, quite frankly, should not have happened. Again, it's not to blame, but it's to look forward. So lessons learned. I always talk about what do you learn from these situations. So some of the newer board members don't have the experience of coming through this, but from lessons learned, ask questions, make sure that we're doing the right due diligence for our taxpayers. I don't like writing off $1.5 million approximately, but as CFO McCord said, at some point from a financial accounting, you need to do that and move on. So I am supportive. I appreciate the work, but also I'm just as a more of awareness for all of us as a board and future boards. We need to make sure we're doing a good job monitoring, asking the right questions, so we do not get into a $9 million upside down accounts receivable. I know Ms. Daly worked a lot on helping some of this early on. Several people had their hands in to help to address the shortcoming. But again, lessons learned. That's all I ask. And make sure going forward we do, as a board, do a better job than we have in the past 12 years. Thank you.
Any other questions or comment? Linda?
Just to add to what Member Ricker said, I did look into these extensively on an individual basis. I asked to be sent 4 cases at a time. I was able to recover several hundreds of thousands of dollars. I didn't get the cases quickly enough, but I wanna make sure people understand we did not file, like maybe it says Medicaid owes us $470,000. We did not correctly file these patient information numbers with Healthcare and Family Services. So we were never going to get that money until the correct information was filed. And so, I mean, it's not like, and the state is sometimes guilty of this, it's not like the state owed us this money and chose not to pay it. They didn't owe it to us because somebody did not put the right information in about the patient to register them in the Medicaid coverage system.
Thank you for that comment. Are there any other questions or comments? Jennifer?
First of all, thank you to Heather, but I also wanted to reiterate the fact that if payment does come in on these, we, for anybody listening, still can collect and receive on that.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, thank you.
Phil?
I too want to thank Mr. Ricker for his comments, as well as Linda. I know Linda did a lot of work in her capacity and with her experience. She pointed out some important things to us. I thank Heather for doing what she did in her particular job. And I must admit, I was on some of those boards that didn't concern themselves much with the debt. I really didn't. I was more interested in building that new one, and I tried to be around that particular project, and it was a great project. I mean, after we got it finished, we were rewarded for our work, and I think anybody who visited the complex, as well as had their parents or loved ones, I should say, put in there, they knew it was a great nursing home. I have no problem with Bellwood. Looking at this, I know I got a wife that does not snoop into my business and so forth. And if she saw this resolution that I was coming down here to say, write off the private debt. Now, she had her mother there for about, I'd say 7 or 8 years, and she wrote that check every month for her mother. she might crucify me if she knew I was going to write off this debt today. And I know we got to do it to help the county move on and so forth. I look at some of these other things, an insurance company, I don't like insurance companies just, we write off the debt to them. They've got money. When we instituted Social Security, they said that's going to ruin all the insurance companies in this country. Insurance companies became one of the wealthiest industries we have. I look here at the state of Illinois. Hey, the state of Illinois, they may say they're broke in many aspects, but I firmly believe we don't have to write off their debt. We can wait them out and eventually get our money there. Looking at anything else here, I see something, and this is what I want to ask you, Heather, when it says, whereas despite write-off, attempt to recover funds will still be made if warranted. What do we mean by if warranted?
So we currently still have, obviously there are several entities that still owe us some money. If for any reason they contact us or we, have a lead, if there's legislation written, something, something unforeseen at this very moment in time, that we can go to them and say, hey, the board wrote this off, but you really did owe us these funds, if we can still collect at that point in time. We still had some contact with HFS recently. We feel that we have exhausted everything with them, but they have changed, they have turnover in staff sometimes. Maybe a new staff person will come in that we're not aware of that can see, the casework that we had been working with the other person on. So I just wanted to leave it open in case there's something unforeseen now that happens in the future, that we can still, utilize access to those individuals.
So like a private pay individual, somebody gets a guilty conscience after they haven't paid for their mother or their dad, they come to you and say, hey, I'm going to owe up and I'm going to give you the $10,000 that my parent really owes you. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Instead of becoming a deadbeat, which some of them are. I don't like to use that word, but let's face it, some people are deadbeats. And I firmly believe in nursing homes, especially when we help the people that are maybe have fallen through the crack. And that's what our nursing home really did. It did help a lot of people. And they got good care at both of them. Off my stool.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. So just to everybody remember, this is probably the third or fourth time that we have written some of this debt off. Heather, would you happen to know the final figure?
I do believe I have that in my notes. Well, I have what we've written off since I started here.
Okay.
And that with the Medicare write-offs and all that, which we did get that process, you do get 65% of that back. We had written off $2.7 million over the last 2.5 years.
Okay.
Before that, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So obviously we all are saying great things about you because it should be said. You and your staff have aggressively gone after this money, and Peoria County appreciates all the work that you're doing on this. So we've just come to a point where I just don't think it's going to go any further. So it's time to take staff and let them, work on other projects. So we appreciate your work. So with that, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Are there any nays? Okay. Any public comment? Miscellaneous? Okay. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.